book swap at Acton Memorial Library. My name is Chris. I'm the teen librarian here, and this month I am joined by Rachel, our tween librarian, and we're going to be talking about the books that we foisted upon each other this month. So to start, Rachel callously made me read Frankie and Bug by Gayle Forman. I cried.
Yeah, because it's good.
It is really good, but you will cry. Yeah, and what did I make you read?
I read Elatsoe by Darcie Badger. I also cried, so...
But mine was nicer, I feel like.
Maybe. I don't know. It was... I mean, they're both good, but it was upsetting in a different way.
In a different way. In a systemic racism way versus a hatred of LGBT people way. Because that's what these books are about. Yeah. But fun. No, so Frankie and Bug is, it's middle grade, which makes sense, because Rachel works with middle schoolers. And it was really, really sweet. It's mostly about friendship, but also a lot about the trauma of being LGBT just in the 80s. Not now.
A really good time.
Yeah, it was the 80s. Yeah, some bad stuff happens. But Frankie and Bug are the best of friends, and they're always there for each other, and it's wonderful. And I do actually genuinely recommend it for anyone who wants a good read. Just be prepared to be a little sad in parts and very happy in others and crying the whole time. And they don't get killed by a serial killer. That's important if you read the book. But it is true. If you're 20 pages in and you're worried they're going to get killed by a serial killer, they don't. It's fine.
They all live. Yeah.
Spoilers.
This book also involves murder.
Yeah.
So, but not of us. Well, maybe
they are kind of serial killers.
Yeah,
It's like a troop of them.
Yes.
It's like a troop.
Large group of serial killers.
A serial killing gang.
Yeah, sure. But I would say this follows more of kind of like a traditional mystery path at first, but then it definitely branches. It was not like a lot of other things I've read.
Yeah.
Recently.
It is really unique in that way.
Yeah.
Like, I really like Darcie Badger, I feel like, has really neatly like carved out a little path for herself in this like very oversaturated land of fantasy YA fiction. She's done a really, really good job carving that path, and I really appreciate her for it. So snaps to you, Darcie Badger.
Yeah, totally. In addition to the murder aspect here, we do have the fantasy aspect, which is pretty cool because that's just like woven into the story, like in a way that there's not a lot of like world building that goes into like you're just thrust into the middle of the world where there's like vampires, but they're kind of just like regulated by the government, and then the like main character, she can bring back animals from the dead, which is fun. And I feel like you know, I've seen sort of like the general bringing things back, but like the way that these animals can do things is really cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely really liked the magic aspect of this book in particular. It's just so good.
It is. And the indigenous stuff too.
Yes. Also, just because it heals my little heart, it's casually asexual.
Yes.
Very casually. Like, it's not a big deal. It's just like, oh, cool, you're asexual? Neat. Yeah. Fine. Life goes on. Yeah. Can we talk about something else now, please?
Can we get back to the murder gang? So
yes. Yes. No, very, very good. Both are available once we check them back in, because we have them checked out. Both are available at Acton Memorial Library, so you can check them out. So talk to me about what your favorite parts of Elatsoe were. Like, what are you happy about? What are you mad at me about?
Okay, I do think I don't know how to like talk about like the lack of world building, but world building, like
Yeah.
one of my favorite things that happened is at one point they're trying to get rid of some vampires, and they're like, actually we're indigenous and so you're not allowed on our land anymore, which like, you know, the traditional vampire trope is like, if you're not allowed in the house, and so I was just like, this is such a smart and cool like usage of like tribal like history and like magical realism, and just it all goes together. And there I feel like there were a lot of parts at the beginning where I was like, this is an interesting chapter that I like reading, but I'm not really sure where it's going, and then at the end it all like coalesces really nicely.
Yes, I love that. I know the whole taking back of the land was huge. It was amazing. A really powerful part of that book for sure. I did it on audio, but something that's so cool about like the physical book as well is that there are these gorgeous like sketches at the beginning of each chapter, and then also at the end. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll
it's
zoom
really,
in. It's fine.
it's just really nice, and I like went back and kind of looked at them when I was done, and it's interesting because they do tell like a narrative, and sometimes it's related to like what's going on in the text, but the illustrations also have kind of their own arc as well, which is it's really cool. I also work with picture books a lot, and there's this like thing about the whole book approach, so not only like the text and the images, but like the cover and like the, and I felt like this was giving whole book. So
well, that's also really interesting because I don't know if you are a crazy person who thinks about this, but holding this book, it feels, this is gonna sound crazy, it feels square. It feels like
it's also really dense. Like the paper that they chose is like incredibly nice. So
like it has a heft to it physically without actually being that thick of a book. Like it's not, I mean, I think it's maybe like 350 pages. It's a pretty medium, like average sized YA fiction book. But like you hold it and you can just feel the weight, which I love. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but I love to think that they did. And like the metaphor behind that and like feeling the weight of the story is so cool.
You can, if you're faced with a murder gang,
you could use it as a weapon, you know.
Important.
It is important. It is important, absolutely. Awesome.
I mean, this is like kind of a cop out, but I am sad that there's like a prequel at this point, right?
Yes.
But there's not a sequel.
There is not a sequel at this point. There's a prequel, Shinlende, which is about it's Elatsoe's direct ancestor.
Is it 6th grade? Grandmother?
I don't think it's even that far back.
Okay.
I think it might just be great.
So the mammoth one?
Yes.
Okay, then
it's
grandmother.
Yeah, I think it is grandmother.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, she that one's also very good.
Nice.
Highly recommend. But yes, it's very. But I think because this one is it is grandmother. This one's in kind of like a future time frame, and Shinlende kind of takes place. It's an alternate universe where magic exists, but it's like in modern day magic exists as opposed to like 60 years from now magic exists kind of thing. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I feel like I got like such a strong sense of characters here, but they're really displaced from like their home setting to solve the crime. And so I do wish, like, I'd be interested to see in the future kind of if she does write any more books, like if it's like kind of like taking place in like hometown, or if it's like Ellie going doing her mystery solving elsewhere. That's
because Shinlende actually, they don't leave there.
Interesting. Okay,
they're like solving stuff. It's still a mystery, but they're solving stuff like in where they be.
Nice.
Where they be.
Okay.
Yeah. So you should read Shinlende.
Yeah, so I definitely will. And then she's also written When the Snake
Falls to Earth.
Okay.
Which is also, I haven't read that one, but it looks like it's also sort of a modern magical realism because she's like a snake woman, but she's got like headphones in.
As one would do.
Yeah.
As a snake woman.
So this is like a snake woman would do. She's got another one, I think, as well. I think she has 4. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I know she has these two in Snake Falls to Earth, and maybe she has one coming soonish.
That's was her debut. So
yes.
It's not telling me anything.
Yes, but we'll, I think she's only got the 3. Yeah, but anxiously awaiting everything else.
What made you choose this book for me?
For you, well, one, I knew that you wanted to read it.
True.
So that helped. But I think genuinely I would recommend this book to almost anyone, just because it's so fresh and interesting the way that she's writing these characters and the way that she's writing this world. It's a different pacing that I think is really, it's not commercial. It kind of has to be a little bit because you have to sell books. Right. That's kind of the point. But it's not commercialized in the way that you see some of these others that are just like pop fluff, which there's nothing against pop fluff. Right. Believe you me, I'm reading some pop fluff right at this particular moment. Rough week. It's got enough things that I think appeal to a lot of people, and it has such a good and important message to it. Yes. I don't, there are very few people, I mean, it would have to be somebody who genuinely is just like vehemently against any kind of fantasy, because this is pretty light fantasy. Yeah. This is, it's magical realism. It's not like, you're on a different planet or in a different world or anything like that. There's not a lot of blah, 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 blah names that you have to figure out how to pronounce. There's gonna maybe be a couple of names that you have to think about for a second, but you'll be fine. Nothing harder than Tchaikovsky or Dostoevsky. You're good. Yes. So, yeah. But yeah, for you in particular, I knew that you had been wanting to read this book and just hadn't made time for it, and I knew what a crime that was. So
thank you for making me
make time. I needed you to, as part of your job, be required to read this book.
Yes.
In order for it to happen. Same question for Frankie and Bug. Why did you make me read this?
Part of it probably was recency bias, and that I had just finished it when we were talking about it, and it was so, it's so poignant. And,
it is.
I was still processing all my emotions, and I was like, I need to talk to as many people as I can about this book.
I understand that completely. I do make people read things just so I can talk about it. I'm definitely going to make somebody read Legendborn for that reason, because it's really good. To find the right person.
But yeah, I also, it's interesting because Gayle Forman has written stuff for teens as well. And
this is her middle grade debut, I think, right? Yeah.
And so I was, have you read any of her teen stuff? Yeah. I was interested in, I don't know, maybe how you thought, her teen stuff and this, differ, or...
it's definitely lighter.
Yes.
It's still not light. But it's, I don't feel like I have to spend a solid week recovering.
Yeah.
It's,
good.
it does get dark, but the main characters are 10, right? So their whole worldview, first of all, bad things are kind of being kept from them because they're 10 and the adults in their lives want to shelter them from what's happening. As they should. As they should. Yeah. I just want to be so clear. The 10-year-olds are upset about it, but the parents are absolutely in the right here. They should be keeping this information from them until they're a little bit better able to handle it. But it's still, even when they learn some pieces of what's happening, or a not sugar-coated, but less graphic, I guess, version of history and what's happening to people around them. The one thing that's great about this age range, because I don't work personally with middles and littles, and I'm happy about that. I like my teens. Teens are where it's at. But one of the really great thing about this age range is they're so excited, they're so wanting to do things, they're so optimistic about the world. When they see something that is against their own like morality, they get so angry about it, and they're so ready to change things and just be like, no, the world is better than this, people are better than this, let's be better, let's do the right thing, because that's what you're supposed to do. And the gray of it all, obviously you get more as you get older and you become an adult and you live in the world, but the gray of it all, while it does make characters interesting, I love me a morally gray character personally. When you take the gray of it all out, it's kind of refreshing with the things that they're dealing with. It's like, you know, like at one point, a character who's very important gets beat up by a gang of skinheads because he's gay. Imagine. And when the kids find out, there is no gray. They say no.
Right.
This isn't okay. There's absolutely no gray to that. When, you know, one of the characters is a sweet little transgender baby, and when his best friend finds out, she's like, yeah, of course. Like, of course you are.
Yeah.
There's no gray. There is no question. There's just like, this is who you are. This is what's happening. You're wonderful. I love you. This is how it should be. This is how life should be. You know, and it's that I liked that.
No, I really like with books like this where like everything is focalized through the 10-year-old perspective. Yes. And so like you're seeing the world kind of in a fresh way.
Yeah.
Because like as the characters learn about things that they're unfamiliar with, they're like processing them.
Right.
But in like an absolutely just like, yeah, curious, like open, like they're not putting up kind of like barriers or right. like they're not approaching it from a place of like hatred. It's only from a place of like, oh, I don't understand, how can I like learn more to understand this, which is something we don't really get the luxury of as adults.
Not at all. And I did love the way, I mean, it is Gayle Forman. She's always got a message, and she's always wanting to show, like, shine light on, like, negative things. But, like, I really appreciated, one, I love me a found family trope. And this wasn't even really a trope. They were just out and out, like, this is our fam. Yeah. This is our family. But also, like, I loved the showing of, like, all of them as refugees from different situations. So, like, one of the characters is a literal refugee fleeing a war-torn country. But then you've got these other characters who are refugees from lives that just didn't accept them for whatever reason. You know, the character who's gay, it's not out and out said, but it's very clearly implied that he left home because he wasn't accepted for who he was. One of the 10-year-olds is the same deal. Same exact deal. And then the mom is, you know, fleeing from a racist family, who didn't accept her partner in life, who doesn't accept her kids, really. And, you know, so I just loved that concept of, you know, different kinds of refugees, all fleeing and finding each other, and building that family and that home. I just love found family so much. Yeah. It's just, you know, it's a delight. I really adore it.
When you were saying that, I was thinking about how, like, you know, when we exchange these books, like the murder aspect
Sure.
is like on the surface, like there's some similarities, but also the kind of the parental presence in both of them. Like,
Yeah.
I find that in, you know, middle grade and younger books, like parents are there to a certain extent, and that often disappears in teen books. Like, you know, the parents are often like dead or just like not really in the picture, and you're like, okay, when I was like a teen, this is.
I will say once more, there are loads of books with the parents in them. It like, it's not all John Green sicklit and like orphaned babies hiding. Like, there's.
Yeah, but also there's like a lot in which the parents, but they're just not like present in the text in the way that I feel like
it is very much
right. And like there's such good like dialogue between parents and kids. Like I find in a lot of like YA stuff, like there is often like conflict in like you're, you know, trying to like test the boundaries of your independence and like find out who you are as a person, and a lot of that comes with like pushing back against authority figures, right? So like even if the parents are physically there, they're like often like a barrier to entry in parts of the stories. Not always, but in this like in Elatsoe for sure, she's always like turning to her mom for advice and like having these like very like open and honest like communications about like what like she should be doing, which was so nice to see.
And it's like partially, I think, you know, a cultural difference, because I feel like outside of Indigenous culture, well, really just in white culture, that fight against against the
lack
parental
elders,
is almost expected and encouraged. Like, you're expected to push back, you know. I remember, you might have experienced this, although you didn't move up here when you were a kid. But I remember, we're both Southern babies. But I remember when I moved up here, because I was in high school, and I remember one of my bigger culture shocks was like having my legal guardian at the time ask me to do a chore, or like, do you want to empty the dishwasher? And I was like, I'm good. Like, thinking that they were genuinely asking me, and they're like, no, I'm telling you to empty the dishwasher. And I'm like, but why didn't you just tell me? Yeah, you know? Yeah. And that kind of culture is so different from what I experienced growing up, but also what a lot of my black and brown friends who were, you know, in the same area and growing up had. Like, your mom didn't ever ask you to do something. She told you to do something, and if you didn't do it right then, you were gonna get a smack. Corporal punishment is not okay, but you were gonna get a smack. Like, you were gonna get like a slipper thrown at your head or something, you know. And so that was like a huge culture shock for me, to move to a predominantly white area and be asked to do things with the expectation that I'm gonna do it, but still just like, do you want to? And it was just very wild for me. Like they were trying to give me agency kind of thing, and I'm like, what is happening? Or like, everyone really didn't like it. Like, women would get mad at me when I'd call them ma'am. And I'm like, what is happening? That's very much a New England thing, I feel like. They're all just like, oh, how dare you respect me? Like, I am not worthy of respect. I'm not old enough yet. I'm like, okay. Like, calm down. I didn't say you were 80. You're just an authority figure, and I need to respect you, right? And they're like, no, never. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
That's so funny.
Did you experience that though?
Yeah, definitely the man thing is something that resonates, because it's just there's definitely a couple times in college where I like said it and people were like, what is happening? I was like, this is just like me being polite. Like, it's normal. But I had actually a really interesting conversation with some friends recently about like what you called friends' parents growing up, and some of them did first names, and I was like, that would not
First
have
names?
not
Like,
have
immediately? Or, like...
Yeah, that was, like, there's, like, one family friend who, like, I've known since I was, like, 2. And
Yeah.
that was, like, very much, like, you can, like, it was a conversation about, like, this person wants you to call them by their first name.
Even then, like, I legitimately had my mother say to me multiple times, she's like, I don't care if they tell you to call them by their first name.
Right.
They are Mr. or Miss blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, no. Now as an adult, I'm like, you should probably call them by what they want to be called. But,
Yeah.
But, like, it was just not...
It's, yeah, never default to anything except for what they tell you, and even then, probably.
Or, I know so many people with toddlers, or, like, not, like, teenagers, but, because, like, I'm not that old, but, like, toddlers or, like, middle school age kids, and they're, like, asking them what they want for dinner, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Whatever happened to you'll get what I'm making, you like it? Like, you don't ask a toddler what they want for dinner. They're gonna say gummy bears.
That's what I would say.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you gotta... And then they're like, oh, well, if they say gummy bears, I'll just make them spinach gummy bears. And I'm like, 1, that sounds like a lot of work. 2, that sounds like a real, like, messed up lie of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just, like... And I mean, obviously, if your kid actively dislikes a specific thing, don't force them to eat it. But just, like, the fact that you're asking your kid every night, like, what do you want? And then you're making it? Like, what do you mean? What if you don't want that? And then there's people who make an entirely separate meal for their toddler.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening here. But I'm not gonna do that. So I never have to worry about it. I just let the parents parent.
Yep.
And then when my friends' kids come over, I'll spoil them rotten and teach them how to bake.
Perfect.
And then send them home with a sugar high and sticky hands.
The dream.
Right? That's what I think. And then when they're old enough, I can just, like, take them on trips and stuff. They're like, hey, let's go on a road trip. Your parents trust me for some reason. Alright, I do have quotes.
You have quotes.
I found quotes.
I didn't find quotes.
That's fine. Oh, this is the found family one. Hold on.
Oh.
Or kind of a found family one. I loved this one. This one made me cry a little bit. A lot of it. Especially yesterday. We're filming this on November 7th. So, Frankie and Bug plunged into the melee, and suddenly they were surrounded by voices, laughter, music. Bug wasn't sure if the skinheads were still chasing them, if they had chased them at all. All she knew was that here, surrounded by the bodybuilders and the skaters and the queers and all the super freaks and refugees who made Venice home, she and Frankie were safe.
Yeah. That one also got me.
I read that yesterday. Like,
Aww.
I was like, ah, it's okay. Because I finished it yesterday. This one is also poignant. So listen. So Bug is talking to her mom here. She says, you always say that life isn't fair, that the best we can hope for is that it's just. But how is what happened to Philip just? How is what's going to happen to Frankie just? Mama was quiet for so long, Bug thought maybe she wouldn't answer. She looked back out the window. Frankie's plane was third in the takeoff line when Mama finally spoke. Sometimes justice takes time. Bug exhaled a shuddery sigh. Why do grown-ups always say that? Don't you know how hard it is to wait? Mama nodded slowly. Maybe we forget. She turned toward the runway. Frankie's plane was now second in line. Thanks for reminding me, and for reminding me that it's up to all of us to hurry toward justice. She looked at Bug. Sometimes you lose sight of that.
That was, I feel like when I read this, she talked about that quote in the author's note at the end, too.
She does, yeah. And
it's
I did cry real hard when I read that. I cried real hard. When did you cry? You said you cried.
Oh, I just cried the whole time.
The whole time?
No, I mean, I don't think I had a big cry, but I was just like, the found family stuff also really makes me tear up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like in moments of, like, acceptance in there, I would just get really teary.
Yeah.
Hearing about, like, Bug's, like, dad would really get me.
Yeah.
I
met in Elatsoe.
Oh.
You said you cried.
Oh, I cried. I'm a very easy crier, for the record.
Apparently. Did you cry at those Sarah McLachlan commercials with the puppies?
I don't watch those. That would be bad for me. Stop. No.
I mean, you can talk about what made you cry in Frankie and Bug, but I was asking you about Elatsoe.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of the ghost animals. So there's ghost dogs. Ghost dog moments made me cry. But also I feel like there's like there was some like sort of found family stuff in here too that got me with one of the characters, like a smaller like side character, gets engaged, and her like wedding party consists of like the way she creates it is very much like found family, and they all just like are constantly showing up to like do the work and like protect people, and that was really wholesome. I feel like a lot of the conversations between Ellie and her mom were really
Isn't it nice
powerful.
to have a mother-daughter duo that communicates?
Yes. Yeah.
That aren't oddly... I don't want to piss off Gilmore Girls fans. But that aren't oddly codependent in a really weird, vaguely incestuous way. I'm just like,
Yeah, no, I feel like Ellie feels very, like, good going to her mom. And she also is, like, frustrated with her, but, like, still respects, like, the boundaries that she sets. It's
almost like real people having real conversations.
One can hope.
Yeah, no, this book is not a miscommunication trope. If you hate miscommunication tropes, this book doesn't have them. And that is one thing that I do love about that book. Like, every time she has a question or she's unsure of something, she does. She just, like, she feels safe to go to her mom or to other family or to her friends and just be like, hey, what's up? This is weird.
Yes.
Can you explain what's happening? Because I don't understand and I need more information. And like, it's been a little bit since I read it, but I don't remember a point after she decides to, like, start investigating the murder, and, like, I don't remember a point where her family was really like, no, you can't. Like, they were like,
no.
Be careful. They were like, let's take this slow. But I don't remember them at any point being like, that's too dangerous. We're not going to do that.
They did set, like, pretty strict, like, okay, like, you know, and the whole family does participate in the investigation ultimately, but, like, when her mom's there, they're like, okay, if this happens, then we stop, we leave. Like, but they aren't like, no, we can't do this.
They just set boundaries.
Yeah.
And they're respected for the most part.
Yeah.
I think Elatsoe is a little bit, like Ellie. She goes by Ellie. Ellie's a little bit...
She pushes the boundaries.
She pushes him a little bit, but she's a teenager. Yeah. Like...
Yeah.
But she doesn't outright break any of them. She's just like, is there any bend here?
Yeah. Yeah.
At this point, can I just sneak right through?
I feel like another really emotional part is that it's her cousin who is killed, and they go and stay with his, like, widow and small child, and that was really
just seeing the grief.
yeah, it's really like palpable on the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's I feel like this also comes up in a lot of like ghost books where like, you know, she can raise the spirits of dead animals, but there's like huge boundaries around dead humans. And the wife is like, can you just bring him back at one point? And that's like a really hard conversation that she has to have and be like, no, for
lots of reasons.
For
so many reasons. We're not gonna do that, but I understand why you're upset. And I'm sorry I can't do that for you. Because I would. And
it's also so, I feel like it's so well done because she thinks about this too, and she's like, I could, and then she's like, no, I know I can't for like these reasons, and then has to like figure out how to like articulate that. Because also her cousin's wife is like not indigenous, and so like there is some sort of like cultural like boundaries that she's like trying to navigate like, and doesn't understand like the kind of rules regarding the ghosts.
Or even, you know, and I think there's something to be said, like even if you've been taught the rules, like it's hard to fully grasp them if you didn't grow up with them and experience the culture surrounding it.
Totally.
Because those rules, like outside of a context of, you know, history and the lived experiences of your family and yourself, are just kind of like seem arbitrary. Especially when you're grieving, especially when you're in an intense emotional state. And and I feel like they really navigated that really well without like again, the people were all just very human. The characters were all just very human in both books. They made mistakes, they did things that were questionable, but they were just at the heart of it good people who were just making choices, and those choices weren't always the best choices. Those choices were just the ones that they made in the moment. And it's really nice to see.
It's also nice because I feel like in both books they are willing to like admit when something has gone wrong, or like try to like reframe a solution to a problem in ways that I don't always see in books or in real life.
No, there was one point, there was one point in Frankie and Bug. So Bug's older brother Daniel had gone by Danny for like most of his life, and then he decided to go by Daniel. And right around the same time, he also decided that he wanted to spend the summer, like more of his summer, hanging out with his friends instead of babysitting Bug. And Bug's really mad about it. Bug's that's the whole reason the book exists, is Bug is mad that
it's so fair
that her brother, who's a few years older, like wants to like hang out with his friends instead of babysitting his little sister all summer. How dare he? But around the same time, he decides for his own reasons to go by Daniel instead of Danny. And Bug keeps calling him Danny, and Daniel keeps asking her to call him Daniel, and she's just mad at him, so she just keeps doing it. But there's this moment in the book that is just beautiful where she's having a conversation with Frankie about names and about how important they are, and like everything, how not okay it is to refer to somebody by something they don't want to be called. And Bug thinks about it, and she's like, oh my god, I've been doing that to Daniel. And then she immediately makes a switch, and I'm like, oh my god, Bug, look at you growing, look at you learning, look at how easy it is to call somebody by a name, and just make that choice and just do it. And I loved that. I loved that for all of them. And also, like, I love how it was just a decision Bug made, and then she started doing it, and like, Daniel didn't tear up or anything when she did it. Daniel didn't have a noticeable reaction when she did it.
He didn't, like, there's nothing that
happened.
There's
nothing. You know, but she's still, like, she knows that she did the right thing, and she knows that she's calling him by the name he wants to be called is important, and she chooses to make that decision without getting any kind of, like, pat on the back.
Right, yeah.
You know? Because it's just the right thing to do, and I loved that for her. I loved that for her.
Yeah.
It was so good.
No, she's so good.
Yes, she's such a good egg. She's a good little bug.
Yeah.
So cute. Yeah. So, well, I think we're going to wrap that up. I don't know how to end these. I don't know how to start them. I don't know how to end them.
You should read these books.
You should read these books.
They're good.
They're very good. You can check them out at the Acton Memorial Library or anywhere that is in the Minuteman Library Network. You can put it on hold at your library and we'll send it to you, and then you can check it out and you can return it to your library and they'll give it back to us. That's how that works. So if you do want to read either of these, feel free to check them out, and tune in next month. I will be doing another book swap with Amy, our children's librarian, and she's going to probably make me talk for 30 minutes about, like, picture books, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. But
picture books are great. You'll find a way.
I didn't say they weren't good. There's just not a whole lot of meat there. It's like...
I'll bring you some stuff.
It's like when somebody goes squirrel hunting. It's like, what's the point?
I love picture books.
They're really cute. I just feel like I have to read 10 of them in order to have content for however long these videos are. It's tough. It's tough to talk about a picture book for longer than, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like it depends on how you have to get into the theory of the picture book beyond the
theory.
We don't have time to get into the theory of the picture book.
Tune in next month for the theory of picture books with Miss Amy. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.